Beauty has always been my life. Since I was a teenager, I immersed myself in the world of aesthetics, studying every nuance, every trend, every method that promised to bring out the best in us. Now, at age 62, I look in the mirror and see not just the reflection of a woman, but a constant battle against the passage of time. I always believed that beauty was a matter of choice, but that choice became increasingly complicated as wrinkles and sagging began to take over my face. Recently, I started to become interested in more radical aesthetic procedures, things I never thought I would consider. My heart was racing at the idea of a transformation. After all, who could blame me for wanting to feel young again? But as I delved into this new world, I realized that every decision generated controversy. My friends looked on with disdain, and family members asked me if I had lost my mind. But before we dive into that story, tell us which state you are watching this video from. And if you enjoyed this touching story, don't forget to subscribe. Still, social pressure weighed on my shoulders. Beauty culture surrounded me, and I felt like I was losing the battle against the unrealistic standards imposed by this society. There was an ethical dilemma that became impossible to ignore. How far would I be willing to go to maintain an image that, in essence, could just be a mask? My internal struggle was just beginning, and the search for perfect beauty would soon become a risky game that would test my limits. My journey into the world of beauty began a long time ago, when I was just a young dreamer, full of hopes and ambitions. The first steps into aesthetics were exciting and full of promise. I remember looking in the mirror, full of life, with the desire to improve the beauty I saw in myself. I was the first in my family to venture into this field, and the feeling of being at the forefront filled me with pride. For years, I worked in salons, meeting fascinating people seeking transformation. I helped them to feel better, to regain their self-esteem, and that always brought me satisfaction. However, as the years passed, I realized that what I taught and promoted was increasingly contradictory. Beauty standards were changing rapidly, and I found myself caught between my work ethic and the pressure of following extreme trends. The first signs of aging appeared as small shadows on my face, and uncertainty began to haunt me. I knew I could do something about it, that I had the power to change it. But at what cost? Conversations with colleagues made me restless. Some argued that certain procedures were the solution, while others warned about the risks. It was a true game of mirrors, where each reflection seemed to tell me something different. And then, the opportunity arose. A longtime friend, a renowned plastic surgeon, suggested a procedure that could reverse the signs of time. I hesitated, but the idea of regaining my youth seduced me, making my heart race. The voices of doubt in my mind were silenced by the desire to feel beautiful again. The decision was about to be made, but what would it really mean for me? The days that followed were marked by increasing anxiety, mixed with delicious expectation. I was starting to mentally prepare myself for what was to come. The idea of being in the hands of a friend comforted me, but the pressure on myself was intense. What would others think? And, most importantly, how would I feel after the transformation? My circle of friends was divided. Some supported me, stating that I had the right to feel good in my own skin, while others, concerned about my health and sanity, warned me about the dangers of aesthetic procedures. Deep down, I understood their concerns. But the urgency to feel young again overcame the voices of caution. I was tired of looking in the mirror and seeing a woman who didn't reflect who I felt inside. The day before the procedure, I spent hours admiring my face, observing every line and blemish. It was a farewell ritual, as if he was saying goodbye. Social pressure became a constant companion, like a shadow that wouldn't leave me. And yet, I couldn't deny that the idea of transforming into an improved version of myself was mesmerizing. Before going to sleep, I made a mental list of the reasons that led me there. It was a desire for acceptance, for self-love, and perhaps even an attempt to make up for lost time. Deep down, I knew there was a price to pay for this unbridled pursuit of beauty. However, the curiosity and longing were stronger. What would become of me after this act? How would this decision shape not just my face, but my life as a whole? On the day of the procedure, I woke up with my heart racing, a mixture of nervousness and excitement consuming me. I woke up earlier than usual, eager to get ready. The mirror reflected a woman who, in a way, still felt like that young girl full of dreams. I made a point of getting ready with care. Wearing a blouse that made me feel comfortable and that reminded me of the confidence I always had. Every step to the office felt like a journey to a new destination, a leap into the unknown. Upon arriving, I was greeted by my friend with a welcoming smile. The room was bright and elegant, but even so, the tension in the air was palpable. The walls of the office seemed to whisper stories of past transformations, of women who were also seeking to rediscover themselves. My thoughts wandered between what could happen and what I really hoped to achieve. As the team prepared me, my gaze fell on a framed image on the wall, a stunning woman with a youthful glow that seemed to transcend age. It was what I wanted, but at the same time, a part of me was hesitant. I knew that this procedure could change me, but I asked myself, to what extent? The anesthetic began to take effect, and a lightness took over my body. As I closed my eyes, a wave of relaxation enveloped me, but I couldn't ignore the small hint of doubt that still persisted in echoing in my mind. Deep down, I was about to cross an invisible line, and there was no turning back. The desire for beauty was becoming an impulse stronger than reason itself. What would become of me after this transformation? The answer was about to reveal itself. I woke up slowly, feeling like I was wrapped in a hazy dream. The atmosphere was silent, but a wave of relief ran through my body when I realized the procedure was over. My friend was next to me, her smile was reassuring, but there was something in her eyes that made me uneasy. The anesthesia still clouded my mind. But a growing curiosity compelled me to look in the mirror. The reflection I saw was a mixture of expectation and fear. My face, although swollen, seemed to have a new smoothness, a promise of rejuvenation. However, what was once an unshakable desire now brought with it an avalanche of questions. I was feeling like a stranger in my own skin. The happiness I had ardently hoped for began to dissipate, replaced by an unsettling tension. What would people think? How would I feel when the swelling went down and the true appearance revealed itself? As the days go by, recovery became a test of patience. Looking in the mirror, sometimes I was surprised by the image I saw, other times, a strange shadow of insecurity was present. My friends, who were initially enthusiastic, began to express concerns about my decision. The conversations became more intense, and I felt like I was on a stage, exposed to critical eyes. As I tried to get back into my routine, I realized that each interaction became a silent examination of the new version of me. My thoughts were dominated by a constant cycle of comparison and self-evaluation. As the opinions of others became more prevalent, I began to question the value of the beauty I had so fervently sought. What had I really gained from this choice? The expected happiness was slipping away, and I found myself trapped in a new web of insecurities. As the days turned into weeks, my reflection in the mirror began to adjust to what I expected. The swelling went down, and the smoothness of my face became more pronounced. However, the feeling of satisfaction that I had idealized remained distant, like a mirage that faded as it approached. In the background, a shadow of doubt hung over me, raising questions about my choice and its impact on my life. It was then that I decided to meet up with a close friend, someone who has always been a voice of reason in the midst of my emotional turmoil. As I sat down for coffee, I noticed his careful gaze as he analyzed my face. Silence stretched between us, and anxiety began to consume me. Finally, she broke the ice, saying softly, "Are you okay? You look different." Her words echoed in my mind. Being different could be positive, but it also carried a connotation of strangeness. I explained how I was feeling, sharing my insecurity about what I had done. I talked about the pressure I felt, not just from friends and family, but from myself. To my surprise, she not only understood, she revealed her own struggles with self-image and beauty. As we talked, something began to shift inside me. I began to realize that I was not alone in this struggle. The social pressure to conform to beauty standards extended to many women, regardless of age. My dilemma was not unique, it was a shared battle. This connection awakened a flame of hope in me. A reminder that true beauty should not be measured in procedures, but rather in the authenticity of who we really are. The conversation unfolded, and a new perspective began to emerge in my mind. What really mattered? Could I find a balance between the aesthetic I was looking for and accepting who I was? The answers were still far from being defined, but, at that moment, I felt that I was, in fact, moving towards a new understanding. The day after the conversation with my friend brought new enthusiasm. The journey towards self-acceptance felt less lonely. I began to explore ways to value my inner beauty, remembering times when I felt confident, not because of my appearance, but because of the inner strength that emanated from me. This reflection became a guide in the midst of the emotional turmoil that still surrounded me. As the days went by, I decided to join a support group for women dealing with image and self-esteem issues. Upon arrival, I was greeted by warm faces and stories that echoed my own. It was a relief to realize that there were so many other women going through similar experiences. As I shared my story, I realized that each of us carried our own insecurities and challenges, but also a collective strength that brought us together. As the meetings continued, conversations about the true essence of beauty began to emerge. One of the participants, a gray-haired visual artist, challenged us all to reflect on what it meant to be truly beautiful. She spoke with passion, emphasizing that beauty should go beyond aesthetics and include authenticity and personal acceptance. These discussions lit a fire inside me, leading me to question my own journey. Was I living to meet the expectations of others or to find my own truth? The revelations began to accumulate, and the weight of past decisions became lighter and lighter. I wanted to be seen, not just as the woman who had a cosmetic procedure, but as the complex and multifaceted woman she had always been. As I pondered these questions, a new idea began to emerge. What if I could use my experience to help other women in their search for acceptance? The thought was exciting and, at the same time, challenging. What I had learned could inspire others to embrace their own journeys of transformation, be it aesthetic or emotional. This idea seemed like the first step towards the true beauty I was searching for. Days turned into weeks, and my new perspective began to solidify. At each support group meeting, I not only shared my experience, but also heard other women's inspiring stories. Each account was a mosaic of challenges and triumphs, a tapestry that reflected the complexity of the female experience. Discussions became a safe space to express our insecurities, fears, and hopes. At one of these meetings, I met Clara, a woman with a vibrant spirit, who became a close friend. She had a presence that lit up the room and a sincere way of talking about her struggles. Clara and I quickly connected, united by our struggles with self-image. In an in-depth conversation, she shared how she had withdrawn from friends and family because she felt inadequate. The helplessness in her voice was palpable, and I knew exactly how she felt. What Clara didn't know was that, even in the midst of our exchange of experiences, there was something consuming me inside. With each encounter, concerns about my appearance seemed to resurface. As I tried to focus on helping others, the social pressure to fit in still echoed in my mind. The uncertainty about how I would be perceived after the changes in my appearance came back to haunt me. My desire to be accepted was still strong, and the fear of disappointing those I loved paralyzed me. It was during one of these nights of reflection that, in a moment of vulnerability, I decided to open my heart. I shared my internal struggle with Clara, exposing the confusion between the search for external beauty and the need for internal acceptance. To my surprise, she stood up and hugged me, a simple but powerful gesture. At that moment, I realized that it wasn't just me who was struggling, but rather a group of women, each dealing with their own insecurities. This emotional connection brought me a new understanding. True beauty is not in appearance, but in authenticity and the ability to unite in our struggles. It was a strong foundation on which I could build my new identity, and this new approach became increasingly clear as I approached the climax of my journey. As the support group became a second home for me, the conversations began to flow at a natural pace, over time creating bonds that became essential. Together, we explore the complexities of beauty, self-image and self-acceptance. Each woman shared her struggles and triumphs, but there was a growing shadow in my heart. A concern that persisted: what would my life be like after all these revelations? In a particularly impactful meeting, Clara presented the idea of holding a community event, a safe space for women to share their stories and journeys to acceptance. The excitement in the air was palpable, but at the same time, a wave of fear invaded me. Was I ready to expose my vulnerability to the public? The idea of opening myself up to a wider audience provoked a whirlwind of emotions. The following weeks were a real test for me. While I felt excited about the possibility of helping other women, a part of me was hesitant to expose myself. The voices of insecurity and doubt echoed in my mind, questioning whether I really was the right person to be at the forefront of this movement. But as the event approached, I realized I couldn't back down. This was my moment of transformation, not just for me, but for all the women who shared the same struggle. On the night of the event, the place was full of women, each bringing with them their stories and experiences. When it was my turn to speak, my heart was beating fast. I looked around, recognizing familiar faces and others that were new. Taking a deep breath, I remember what Clara had said: beauty is in vulnerability. By putting myself out there, I not only sought acceptance, but I also wanted to inspire others to embrace their own journeys. And so, in front of all those women, I shared my story. My words flowed with unexpected sincerity. I talked about my challenges, my fears and the search for acceptance. In that instant, I realized that every word had the power to create a connection. The emotional climax of the night was approaching, and I was about to discover that, behind the external beauty, there was an inner strength that could light the way to true acceptance. After sharing my story, a wave of emotion filled the room. The women began to applaud, and tears of gratitude and understanding streamed down the faces around me. I felt like we were all united in a moment of vulnerability and strength. The energy in the room was palpable, and as I looked at each of them, I realized that I had built a space where authenticity and acceptance were valued above any superficial standards. The stories unfolded one by one, each account resonating in my heart. Some women talked about their experiences with aesthetic procedures, while others shared their struggles with self-image over the years. It was as if each narrative was a thread that wove a rich, colorful tapestry of human experiences. By the end of the night, I felt like we had all taken a significant step towards self-acceptance. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in my heart and in the community was different. The conversations became deeper and more sincere. I started to feel more comfortable in my own skin, allowing the insecurities to slowly subside. Although the challenges had not completely disappeared, there was a new sense of hope. The event was a turning point, not just for me, but for all the women who participated. Reflecting on this journey, I realized that true beauty was not in how we were seen by others, but in how we saw ourselves. I learned to embrace every imperfection and celebrate my authenticity. As I said goodbye to that phase of my life, I felt grateful for the lessons I learned and the connections I made. Instead of focusing only on aesthetic procedures, I started to value the inner beauty that blossomed every day. What once felt like a longing for external acceptance has now turned into a deep love for who I am, with all my experiences and stories. This new approach gave me the courage to move forward, and I was eager to explore what the future would hold. If you identify with this journey or have your own experiences to share, don't hesitate to leave a comment. Where are you watching this video from? And if you enjoyed this heartwarming story, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring storytelling.